Um, thing. Okay, very good. This is the beginning here, and so we'll start off with, let's just say another word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, as we start, we pray for your Holy Spirit. We pray for good functioning of the internet. We thank you, Lord, that you watch over each one of us and bless us now as we think about the brain. In Jesus' name, amen. Blueprint for
Amen.
Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation. We're going to be talking about keeping your mind sharp, as in avoiding Alzheimer's, memory loss, cognitive decline, and dementia. Do ye not remember, says Mark 8:18. It's a good question. Do we remember? And that's important, because if we don't remember, we're in trouble. And this is brought out in Desire of Ages 3:13, where it says, He does not give his children all the directions for their life journey at once, lest they should become confused. He tells them just as much as they can remember and perform. So if you have a poor memory, he may not tell you very much. And wouldn't we all like God to tell us more things? And so if we want to be told more things, we have to be able to remember. After this presentation, you will know more about the causes and natural home remedies for Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. There was a lady that we came across who, in her retirement years, got tired of living in Michigan, where it was cold and nasty weather, so she moved to Florida, away from her friends and family. Out there all by herself, she sort of let loose reins on her appetite and ate whatever she wanted, and soon her brain was dysfunctioning. Soon she couldn't remember. Soon she wasn't able to be a part of society as she should be. She couldn't be independent. She couldn't take care of herself. And so the family, fearing for grandmother's well-being, brought her back home to Michigan. Started feeding her good food. Started giving her good lifestyle measures. Within 6 months, her brain was back to normal, and she could take care of herself. You see, what we do to ourselves affects our brain, and how we take care of our appetite affects whether we survive or not. Well, I used to practice fairly conventionally. Here I am with one of my patients. But now I've changed my specialty to lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine tries to maximize your health above the probability of disease. That's what we really want, is to be healthy enough that we don't get sick, eh? So if you choose healthy lifestyle habits, you can have healthy bodies that support a healthy brain. What will we cover in this talk? We're going to talk about who gets dementia. Will it be you? Will it be somebody else? How your diet affects your brain, how physical and mental exercise affect your brain, and also the psychosocial health and how it impacts dementia. What is dementia? Well, you've heard of heart failure, or maybe kidney failure. Well, this is brain failure. It's a progressive decline in the function of the brain. Things like loss of memory, loss of intellect, loss of rationality, social skills go out the window, and it affects physical functioning. It can happen to anybody, but as you get older, it's more likely to happen. In fact, after 65, it starts going up. By 85, 1 in 3 will have dementia. I think of a family that I worked with before, and both of them got into their 80s. The wife had severe rheumatoid arthritis, but her brain functioned well. The husband had a very good body, and no arthritis, but his brain quit functioning. So one had the good body, and the other had the good brain. Well, that's a division of labor, right? Different people with different talents. There's several different types of dementia, and I'm just sort of lumping them all together. Alzheimer's is definitely the predominant one. There's also vascular dementia and frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body disease dementia. But we're going to just interchangeably in this talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, because our lifestyle interventions pretty well cover all the different types of dementias that you can have. And so here again, as you get older, the risk of dementia goes up. How do we know if somebody has Alzheimer's? Well, here's a artist depiction of a normal brain and now an Alzheimer's brain. Notice on the left that we have purple neurons and a brown matrix in the background. When we move over to Alzheimer's, you see that two things have happened. There's something called amyloid plaque, brown stuff as they've pictured it here, in the stroma, or the connective tissue of the brain. And then in the purple cells, you have something called neurofibrillary tangles. Neurofibrillary tangles are really just collections of more amyloid, and it can be all kinds of stuff collecting in the cells that just shouldn't be there. It's like the garbage is piling up and nobody's taking it out. And so that's a good way of thinking of this. Now, here's 10 signs you may be getting dementia. So think about these seriously, think about these closely. And the first one, of course, is memory loss. That disrupts daily life. You spend more time trying to remember where you put your keys, where you lost your stuff, or what should have been on your list of things to buy at the store, whatever. You start having to spend more time trying to trace your lost memories than getting things done. Maybe you can't remember where you put your keys. Oh, I can't get in the house. Can't remember where, the name of your neighbor. Can't call him. Number 2, challenges in planning or solving problems. Problems that didn't used to set you back are now taking up more of your time as you weigh in and out all the different factors, and you find yourself unable to make good plans. Difficulty completing familiar tasks at home. I've done this all my life. Why can't I do it now? Or at work or at leisure. Fusion with time and place. Let's see, what is today? What is today? Oh, can't remember what today is. Oh, today must be Thursday, Friday, Sunday, whatever. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships, like 3D, can I comb my hair? New problems with words and speaking or writing, especially trying to remember the words or misapplying the words, misplacing things, losing the ability to retrace steps. This is a big one. And decrease or poor judgment. Can't think properly. Withdraw. So, poor judgment. We had a gentleman in our church got Alzheimer's. Pretty soon he was selling expensive things out of his garage for little or nothing to anybody that would come along and buy it. Sold his lawnmower, big fancy lawnmower, for little or nothing to somebody. Withdraw from work or social activities. Kind of hiding out. Changes in mood and personality. These are all signs you may be getting dementia. And hopefully you don't have too many of those on there. Now, let's talk about things that are helpful. Let's get into the real crux of the matter. And so let's start out by saying, go nutrient dense. What do I mean by nutrient dense? It means for every ounce of food you eat, you have a lot more vitamins and minerals and nutrition. What would be an example of something that's not nutrient dense? How about a loaf of white bread? Very little nutrients. Not nutrient dense. What would be an example of something very nutrient dense? How about berries, fruit, vegetables, green leafies? Yeah, those kind of things. And so if we look at the risk of Alzheimer's and the number of pieces of fruit eaten per day, those who eat more than 3 pieces of fruit per day lower their risk of Alzheimer's by 60%. 60%. That's amazing. And so, yes, this morning I had more than 3 pieces of fruit for my breakfast. And so maybe I won't get Alzheimer's. At least I remembered I ate fruit for breakfast, right? Now, Fruits save your brain. Which fruits? Well, there's been a number of them that have been studied. I won't say that any fruit is particularly bad. I mean, most fruits are good. But if we look at the ones that have been studied, then yeah, definitely berries, blueberries, strawberries top the list. And the scientists love studying these berries, and they do make a difference. There's also pomegranate studied at Melinda. And pomegranate is very good at helping maintain the memory. Apples, figs. You know, when I learned that figs were part of keeping you from getting Alzheimer's, I decided to become a figitarian. No, not really, but I really like figs, and so I do include them in my diet once in a while. Cherries and plums. You know, plums are very high in antioxidants. Grapefruit helps your blood flow to your brain. Peppers, high in vitamin C. These have all been studied. And somebody said, well, you can't leave out goji berries. Well, yes, goji berries. And so these are all good fruits, but I mean, like I said, I don't think you can go wrong with any fruits. Certainly those that seem to be higher in antioxidants are preferred by science, but if you're eating fruit, you're not eating some of the other things that we'll get into that cause you problems. You see, when you eat lots of fruit, you get lots of the vitamins, A, C, and E. And if you look at these vitamins in an omnivore, they get, you know, a mediocre amount of vitamin C, E, and A. But if you adopt a plant-based diet, then you nearly triple all the vitamins that you get. So that's what we're talking about, nutrient dense. You eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, you triple the amount of vitamins that you get in your diet, and about the same, you get a triple amount in your bloodstream. Whereas if you're eating an animal-based diet, you don't get much of these good brain-preserving vitamins. Now, let's get into certain vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables, green leafy vegetables. They slow cognitive decline. They lower your risk of dementia as you get older. And so, oh, but I don't like to eat salad. Oh, I don't like my vegetables. I'd rather, well, consider it an investment in your brain's future. Eat for strength and not for drunkenness. And find ways to make them taste good without making them dangerous. So if you want to protect your brain, go to this part of your supermarket. Eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. Oh, what kind of diet is that? Well, isn't this the Bible diet? Aren't we getting back to Genesis with this? Fruit, nuts, seeds, vegetables. Yeah, so this is where we want to be. We want to be where we started. Adam lived a long time, and there's no evidence he ever had dementia. And so we want to make sure we can at least approximate some of that in time. Well, I don't like eating my fruits and vegetables. Can I just stick them in a blender, make them into a smoothie or a juice? Wouldn't that be better? Can I just juice your way to fabulous health? Not so, according to scientific research. People who drink juice every day have lower brain volumes and poorer memories. We talked last time a bit about, I think people ask questions about juicing and isn't it greatly beneficial? And well, not for your brain. That's not a good idea. You weren't made to run on that liquid stuff. You go drinking that stuff and it goes in your bloodstream rather quickly. We call it leaky gut. And it goes right to your brain. Maybe it goes to leaky brain, and you end up with too much junk in your brain that wasn't supposed to be there because you poured it in as a juice. You're supposed to chew your food, and then it drops off at very interesting intervals all along your small intestine and so forth, and it doesn't end up clouding your brain. Now, let's talk about other things in fruits and vegetables. We call them healthy staples, and here I've pictured grains, whole grains. But we can also picture beans, legumes, or nuts and seeds. These are whole products. Nuts and seeds best eaten raw or dry roasted, but raw is going to give you the most nutrients. And so we want to make sure we get, because all these have been shown to improve your odds of avoiding dementia. Whole grains as opposed to refined grains. A lot of refined grains out there, people eating without any hope of saving their brain. There's herbs that can be helpful too. I mean, we mentioned vegetables, but herbs are ones that are specific for medicinal properties. Herbs can help fight Alzheimer's. Here I have a whole list, and I'll just say you can go to my website and download a handout for this lecture, and I'll give you the website toward the end here. But ashwagandha is definitely going to be beneficial. It helps to reverse the accumulation of beta amyloid in the brain. Brahmi, and it inhibits beta amyloid aggregation in the brain and improves learning. Gotcha cola helps nullifies the effects of aluminum toxicity, which we'll get into aluminum here as we go along. Ginkgo biloba helps with people with mild Alzheimer's and dementia to help reverse it. Horsetail contains silica, which helps you get rid of aluminum and reduces dementia and Alzheimer's. Herpesia striata, probably not saying these right, but produces cognitive enhancement and improves memory. Ginseng helps the frontal lobes. Red clover helps fight the effects of MSG on the brain, which causes dementia. Oh, we'll get into that too, MSG. Sage, which is a pretty common herb you can buy in the seasoning department of most stores, improves cognitive function in Alzheimer's. And there's turmeric. Inhibits beta amyloid plaque formation, binds copper, and is an antioxidant. So there you go. And turmeric can help things cross the blood-brain barriers. You put things with it, and it helps make them function better in the brain. Now, what do you think is the number one cause of dementia? I'm just going to put a question to you. If I was to ask you, what is the number one cause? What would you say it is? Yeah, what something, and I'll just give you, a little insight here. What I'm going to tell you, it increases your brain's inflammation and the amyloid plaque. And so what is the number one cause of increased inflammation, amyloid plaque in the brain, which is really how we diagnose Alzheimer's? Well, here it is. It also decreases blood flow to the brain and oxygen. It's overeating, eating too much food. You overeat and you get dementia. Bon appetit, right? Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength and not for drunkenness. What's that mean? Well, how do you decide how much food to eat? Well, if it tastes good, eat more of it, right? Well, that's what keeps fast food restaurants in business. That's what keeps doctors in business, hey? Well, so how do I decide how much food to eat? Well, what about, how would you know how much gas to put in your car? Well, by how far I'm going to drive. Well, how about you put how much food in your body compared to how much nutrition you need, or how much energy you need, or how many calories you need for what you're going to do for the day. And the nutrients match to what your tasks are going to require of you. Not, if it tastes good, eat more. I mean, when you walk into fellowship lunch, to potluck, and you look around, do you look for what's going to make me healthy, or do you look for what will taste good and what can I try and how can I satisfy my taste buds? Well, there you go. It's a whole paradigm shift. I'm eating for strength and not for drunkenness. I'm eating to live. I'm not just living to eat. I have to have a purpose in this. We're told that the laboring man can eat more than the man that works with his brain all the time. That the man that works with his brain should have a very light diet, maybe lots of fruit, maybe even taking and fasting a few times a week, or times, once in a while. And so we need to match our food to our needs. Just eating and eating until your stomach's always full of whatever tastes good, you're going to get Alzheimer's. Now, we're going to read Proverbs 38 and 9. Why do we not want to forget? Remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me, lest I be full and deny thee and say, Who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my God in vain. So when the person overate, they forgot the Lord, who is the Lord, and they did it because they were not eating food that was convenient for them or suited to their needs. And so there it is in Proverbs. Now, the people who've taught us a lot about Alzheimer's are the Okinawans. They are 75% less likely to get Alzheimer's, and they eat 40% fewer calories than most Americans. There you go. Fewer calories, better brains. Now, let's talk about foods that harm the brain. And so this may not be the most popular section of the talk, but maybe it should be. And so let's just start off right at the top. How about all these different kinds of meats and fried foods? I mean, these are loaded with what we call advanced glycation end products. They're things that really increase your risk of brain dysfunction. And the animal protein particularly tends to dumb down the brain. Clean meats, according to Leviticus, if you eat them, they slow the brain down. If you eat unclean meats, they slow the brain down 7 times more than the clean meats. Very interesting. And then the fried foods, all these oxidized oils. Oxidized oils have, well, for example, soybeans are a pretty good food. If we said they had 1 unit of advanced glycation end products, fried oils would have 10 times as much. And so this is where we have to look at this and say, what am I eating, and why am I eating it, and what's its impact on me? And then there's things like cheese, and cheese is definitely linked to Alzheimer's. And so cheese, with all of its oxidized oils, oxidized fats, and bacteria and products of fermentation, definitely a problem. Sugar. High sugar diet increases inflammation on the brain, causes decreased oxygen on the brain through making all the little red blood cells stick together. We call it Rouleau effect. And you end up with more dementia. And then there's things where you mix, say, dairy with sugar, milk and sugar together. Those definitely lead to dementia. What it does is it raises your cholesterol for an extended period of time, much longer than it would normally be raised by mixing milk and sugar. When you mix these together, it causes the oxygen on the brain to drop way low, and so you can't think. So let's just get into some of these more in detail. Meat eating increases your risk of Alzheimer's by 3-fold, 3 times. And incidentally, 13% of Alzheimer's patients that they did autopsies on really had, in America, mad cow disease. Creutzfeldt Jakob. And so this is the unthinkable, right? You mean we have Alzheimer's? I mean, we have mad cow disease in America? Yep. I had a physician friend who had a patient came in, diagnosed him with mad cow disease, found the cow that also had mad cow disease, from which she got the mad cow disease. They killed the cow. Do you think that hit the news? Oh, sweep that under the carpet. Now, brain function with rich foods. Across the bottom, we have the time after eating a high-fat meal. Up the inside, we have the oxygen on the brain. You'd like the oxygen on your brain to be somewhere around 100%, certainly not below 90%. But watch what happens when at time 0 we eat a high-fat meal. We'll start off right here at time 0. We'll eat the high-fat meal, and notice that. Look at this. Look very close. Boy, look at that. Within 6 hours, the oxygen on the brain falls below 70%. What's more, it doesn't return to normal for 3 whole days. That's 3 days without your brain. Do you remember those 3 days? And then the next day you eat another high-fat meal. Here we go again. Next day, another high-fat meal. Here we go again. Next day. The moral of this story is some people have never had a fully functioning brain. Now, don't go elbowing your partner. Don't go thinking of any politicians. This is about you and whether your brain is functioning. So I mentioned ice cream, and ice cream's a problem because ice cream has oxidized cholesterol, and oxidized cholesterol tends to cause lesions in blood vessels. Oxidized cholesterol causes plaque. What happens is the oxidized cholesterol goes in oxidized proteins, and those oxidized proteins end up in your brain as plaque, amyloid plaque. Really, amyloid plaque is just a bunch of oxidized proteins. And so these oxidized proteins came from somewhere. And if you're eating something that's highly oxidant or oxidized, like ice cream, with all the oxygen pumped into it when they freeze it, then you're going to end up with Alzheimer's disease. Now, what do we want to think about our meal times? First of all, for any brain disorder, you want very specific meal times. Eating between meals is called snacking. Don't eat between meals. The pleasure of doing so will eventually be forgotten. In other words, your memory is going to suffer. If you maintain a regular meal schedule with 2 or 3 daily meals with no snacking between, it has an anti-aging effect on your brain. Regular schedule. It's your circadian rhythms. Now, did you know that even soybeans run on a clock? That's right. Soybeans run on a clock. And if you let the soybeans run on a clock, they will work just like well, they can tell you when the sun's coming up, when it's going down. And in fact, a bunch of scientists went out to a field of soybeans in the middle of the night, actually 3 a.m., when it was very pitch black, and they shined a very bright light on the soybeans that mimicked the sun. Well, the soybeans all turned their leaves up to the sunlight, which was artificial. Well, for the next week, the scientists went out to the patch of soybeans and looked at them without a bright light. And every morning at 3 a.m., the soybeans turned their leaves up expecting a bright light, which didn't come. For a whole week, their clocks had been entrained to wake up at 3 a.m. and look for a sunlight. They run on a clock. So do you. And if you keep everything in your life managed, scheduled according to the clock, your brain will function much better. Your brain will be blessed. But if you're always changing your meal times, always changing your bedtimes, always changing your getting up times, you will find that you will become more and more likely to get dementia. Now, let's talk about the brain-gut axis. You ever heard of that? Or the gut-brain axis. You see, there's healthy bacteria in your gut that can improve your memory and inhibit the development of Alzheimer's disease. Some people have the idea, I'll just keep living the way I live, and I'll go find somebody else's bacteria, put them in pills, call them probiotics, and eat those, and maybe I can populate my intestines with a good bacteria that will give me a good brain health. Well, the reason you have the bacteria that you do in your gut is based on what you eat, not on the fact that you took a right probiotic sometime in your life. And so let's look at it this way. How do I get the right bacteria in my gut? Well, let's use an example. Let's suppose you're trying to get, this different way of looking at it. Let's suppose you want a pet cat, for example. I want a pet kitty. You look around the neighborhood, you see a lot of kitties running around. How can I attract a cat? How can I get a cat to come join me? How can I make a cat part of my family? I want to put out something that will attract the cat. How about if I put out a bowl of lettuce salad? You think a cat's going to come? No, no cat. You can put out as many lettuce salads as you want. You won't get a cat. Cats don't come to the doors where people put out lettuce. You probably get a rabbit, but you won't get a cat. Oh, so what am I going to do to get a cat? How about put out a bowl of milk, a fish, something that cats eat? Right. So how do I get a cat? I put out something they like to eat. How do I get the right bacteria in my gut? I eat something that the right bacteria like. Now, if I get this cat to come to my house with putting out a fish or something and they start coming, what if all of a sudden, instead of putting out a fish, I put out lettuce again? Cat's going to stick around? Cat's not going to stick around. Well, same thing in your gut. You start feeding the bacteria the wrong stuff. Doesn't matter how many probiotics you stuck down your gullet. It's not going to fix the problem. You have to feed the right bacteria with the right food that they like, that they want, and it's going to be fresh fruits and vegetables. It's going to be beans. It's going to be nuts and seeds. And those type of bacteria that like that kind of stuff will help your memory. Now, large varieties at one meal confuse the stomach, and the stomach is hooked up with the brain. So, yeah, it's also hooked up with the heart, right? Have you heard it said that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach? Well, the way to a man's brain is through his stomach too, right? So large varieties at one meal is not going to help, especially when you mix fruits and vegetables at the same meal. This tends to confuse the brain. It's because the fruit has a different digestive process than does the vegetables. And you mix these things together, and the two processes are not compatible. And so usually the fruit ends up rotting while the vegetables try to get digested. And rotting fruit makes for dementia. Any kind of rotting anything fermented. Oh, but they told me I should eat fermented food. Well, don't remember that fact. Find something else. Yeah, don't eat that food. It's a trick. People let their food rot, and then they got to sell it to somebody, so they're going to sell it to you. No, don't let that happen. That's not a good thing. So you don't want large varieties at any one meal. Best to eat 3 or 4 food items at most at any one meal. This table would be scary to the stomach and brain, and not to mix fruits and vegetables. Now let's talk about specific ingredients. And I mentioned this earlier, that certain things help fight MSG and monosodium glutamate. It increases Alzheimer's, dementia. It makes your brain less likely to function correctly. And things that have lots of free glutamate or monosodium glutamate are soy sauce, Bragg's liquid aminos, nutritional yeast, soy protein isolate, anything fermented like apple cider vinegar, cheese definitely, but anything fermented. What's fermented things? Coffee, vanilla, soy sauce, wine, cheese, vinegar, brown rice syrup, mushrooms, of course, nutritional yeast. I mean, there's all kinds of fermented things, and we could do a whole talk on fermented stuff. But now another thing to think about is avoid caffeine on the brain. It does. Oh, but they told me if I drank coffee, it would. The coffee industry has more advertising dollars than fund the entire NIH. They can buy research, and it'll claim that coffee helps your brain, but caffeine decreases mental performance. It does not improve alertness, merely returns the addicts to their baseline. The first time you drink coffee, you might have gotten a little improvement over baseline, but then you drop below baseline, and then you have to drink it just to hit baseline again. It disrupts your sleep, where you do your memory relocations from short-term memory to long-term memory. It reduces the protective hormone melatonin. This is bad news. And so caffeine does not help the brain, whether it's from sports drinks, colas, tea, coffee, chocolate, whatever. Now, what about alcohol? Well, we all know alcohol doesn't help the brain. Well, I have to throw it in here just so people don't think I missed it, but alcohol causes loss of important neurons, and it increases Alzheimer's changes in your brain. But they told me if I drank red wine. Yeah, right. Okay. Forget it not. It is not for kings, the long meal. It's not for kings to drink wine, nor princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget. Forget what? Forget the law. What happens if they forget the law? Forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. So yes, you drink alcohol, you will be forgetful. You will lose your memory. It's told to us by God himself. So there you go. Now, what about modern chemicals? Oh, modern chemicals. Better living through chemistry, right? Everything's made out of plastic. We spray all kinds of chemicals all over our food, herbicides and pesticides. We have formaldehyde in our carpets and in our insulation boards and in our materials. There's arsenic in chicken, arsenic in eggs because it kills parasites. They use it. Aluminum. Where do I find aluminum? Well, what's the number one source of aluminum in Americans' food intake or around the world? Guess what the number one source of aluminum is? Yes, there's some in vaccines, but that's not the number one source. Yes, there's some in cooking pots. Yes, there is, but that's not the number one source. Number one source is cheese, which can be up to 3% aluminum. That's the way they make it into a clump instead of being like yogurt. And then there is aluminum in baking powder, pancakes and donuts and pretzels and things like this. And so yeah, baking powders. Fluoride. They put it in your drinking water. Dumbs everybody down. Mercury in your vaccines and in high fructose corn syrup and in fish. Bromide in fire retardants. Medications. Oh, don't go there. Anesthetics. The more times you've had surgery, the more likely you are to have, anesthesia brain, amnesia, or memory loss, Alzheimer's. Tobacco does not help your brain. Now, Now I said here herbicides and pesticides. What do you think is the food? If you went to the local supermarket and you looked at all the foods and you said, how can I avoid pesticides? How can I avoid herbicides? What foods have the most herbicides? What foods have the most pesticides? And people, when I ask people this, invariably I ask a large audience, they'll say, oh, strawberries and green leafy vegetables and apples and no. Beef is the most dangerous food for herbicide contamination and ranks third in insecticide contamination. Those animals out there in the field are being fed this food that's all sprayed, and it gets concentrated in them. How much? I don't know how much it gets concentrated in them, but I did see a study where they studied sea lions off the coast of California, and anything that was in the fish, they concentrated 240 times. 240 times. So the cow might be concentrating the stuff too, 240 times. It's the beef is the problem. Where's the beef? Oh, yeah, where's the beef? So let's just keep it in perspective. If somebody told you your strawberries are going to be the worst, well, strawberries are high in pesticides, and I'll admit it. But nothing compared to the animal products that are in your supermarket. So don't let anybody talk you into avoiding fresh fruits and vegetables and eating concentrated foods that have lots of pesticides. Besides, the fresh fruits and vegetables have the antioxidants to help counteract the pesticides. The cow doesn't. Now, how about mold? Yeah. Mold increases your risk of dementia. You have it in your bathroom, around the corners of your sink and your bathtub or your shower. You have it in your basement because you can't get it out enough. It's always wet. You have it in your attic because there's a leak in the roof. You have it in the walls because. Well, and then some foods have mold in them. How about peanut butter? Very common to have mold in it. Well, so what do I do about this mold? You need to totally avoid anything that's fermented for sure. Totally avoid living in any building that has had water damage. Totally make sure that everything in your house is always clean. Don't let the corners gather dust. Now, what about hypersexuality and masturbation? You know, those increase Alzheimer's. What happens is they deplete the essential nutrient zinc. and you end up with problems. Here I have a gentleman who wrote one of the first famous books on Christian and in his lectures he said, in order to make sure you did not let the sun go down on your anger, you had to demonstrate that you weren't angry by what you did in bed at night, every night, every night, every night. He died of Alzheimer's in a nursing home. Yep. All right. Dementia risk increased with either lack of sleep or with too much sleep. There is a certain amount of sleep that's good. Now, putting that in perspective, too long, too short, or sleeping pills all increase Alzheimer's. But let me just say this. How long is too long? How short is too short? Some of this has to do with you being different than everybody else and what amount of sleep you do well on. But studies are showing that as well as getting an adequate amount of sleep for you, the next most important thing is having it at the exact same time every night. And even people who could function on 6 hours of sleep per night, if they did it at the exact same time every night, were much more healthy than those who slept 8 hours a night but never had the same bedtime and getting up time. So keep that in mind. It's very important. So regularity in bedtime improves your memory. The best time to sleep is between 9 and 5, but whatever time you choose, make sure it is never changed except for emergencies, right? Okay. Now, when you don't get sleep, when you're up late at night and light is shining in your eyes, then it decreases the melatonin levels in your brain. Melatonin is there to help your brain. Remember we mentioned that under herbs, certain herbs helping melatonin. And so late bedtime after 9:30, you get very little melatonin. Irregular eating and sleeping schedule, you get very little melatonin. Shift work, terrible. You know, for example, so yeah, I'm from the hospital, so nurses have terrible schedules for maybe one day they work midnight, you know, next day they're working, you know, a day shift, and there's three different shifts, and throughout the week they may have odd shifts all week long. Never know when they're going to have the same shift. That'll kill you. Artificial lighting after sundown, night lights, illuminated clocks, these all can cause problems, especially blue light, or that very white light from LEDs and TVs and fluorescents and computers, smartphones, tablets. All this artificial light at night after sundown messes with your melatonin, and you're going to have more dementia. Now, entertainment isn't that helpful, whether it's because it raises your adrenaline or cortisol, those can cause dementia, or whether it is the actual light of the devices producing the media entertainment. It's not real clear. It's an epidemiological study, not a mechanistic proposition. But anyway, every hour per day spent in media entertainment increases your risk of Alzheimer's by 30%. So you're spending 3 hours a night watching TV, that's 90% higher risk of Alzheimer's. Television, movies, YouTube, video games, computer time, you name it. And it sort of goes along with the blue light problem, right? So, yeah, and then there's electromagnetic fields associated with these devices, which cause Alzheimer's too. It increases your risk. It makes it so here's the lady smiling with her phone to her head. Oh boy, what are you doing to your head with that? You put it to your head. A military researcher told me himself in their research, somebody puts the cell phone to their head for 20 minutes, the temperature of the brain goes up by a half a degree. That's amazing. How's that amazing? Why is that amazing? Because your brain gets a large portion of the blood that your heart pumps. And it's like the radiator is always working. There's always an exchange of fluid, yet the brain's temperature with that much blood going through it, can go up by half a degree. Amazing. And that's because you got this, microwave thing up to your head. Physical and oops, sorry. What is it that's going on here that, that makes it so it's like this? You see, the EMF changes the blood-brain barrier. The EMF changes the calcium channel signaling in your brain. The EMF tends to cause all kinds of problems with the way ions flow around and whether or not they maintain their gradients across cell walls. So it's a big problem. Okay, physical activity helps prevent Alzheimer's. You keep your body active and help support a healthy brain. Best times to exercise: before breakfast and immediately after each meal. There you go. Before breakfast and immediately after each meal. Those are good times. Walking is your best exercise. Why walking as compared to other things? Well, it gets all the muscles in your body going. It helps to massage your intestines as things move about. It makes it so that you end up with a lot more outdoor activity. It gives you fresh air and sunshine. It makes sure that there's more oxygen in your brain for the amount of physical activity you're doing as compared to running, as compared to more difficult exercises that make you short of breath. And so improves brain function and increases memory, reduces the risk of dementia. A healthy lifestyle with a daily outdoor activity is definitely going to help you reduce dementia. Outdoor activity. Notice the emphasis. Outdoor. We become indoor people. We avoid the sun. Countries with lower average sunlight have higher Alzheimer's death rates. Outdoor air improves mental performance. There's more oxygen, less contaminants, less chemicals, less dust, less mold. And types of exercise that are also good are gardening. When you combine the mental, thinking about things, with your physical, working hard. And so having to think about, where am I going to plant this? How am I going to get rid of that bug? How am I going to get rid of the weed? Another important thing is to realize is that your brain is largely water. At least if you've been drinking your water. If you're dehydrated, your brain shrinks. Good hydration improves your memory and intelligence, reducing your risk of dementia. So start off the day with a quart of water or a liter. Men need 3.7 liters per day. That includes some of what they eat, so maybe 3 liters to drink and 0.7 in their food. Women need 2.7 liters per day, maybe 2 liters to drink and 0.7 in their food. And so this would be quarts or liters, so about the same. A quart is 32 ounces, a liter is 33.7 or something ounces. So you drink your water every day, and you start off the day with a quart. And then I say drink a quart between breakfast and lunch, drink a quart a couple hours after lunch, get in your 3 per day. And keeping a well-hydrated brain helps you to be very clear on your brain. And of course you want your water to be aluminum and fluoride free. Friends don't let friends drink tap water, they say. All right, hydrotherapy. You can use the water for more than drinking. And so how do we treat dementia with some hydrotherapy? Well, I'll tell you how we do it. Here's what we do. We take and we do a cool morning sponge bath. It stimulates the brain and nerves. Scrub the skin thoroughly with a cool, this is really helpful. Then there's hot and cold showers to invigorate brain circulation. There's also treatments we can do the head. This is described by Kellogg, and I'll just try to show you here. What we do is we have a patient lay in a bed with or on their back on the bed, and we put a cold pack under the back of their head and a hot pack on their forehead while they're laying down. We do that for 3 minutes. Then we switch them. Put the hot on the back, under the head, and the cold on the forehead. What this does is it changes the blood flow through the brain, and we keep doing that back and forth, back and forth. I say do it 7 times and then end with cold. And this is the way to get the brain stimulated to have better blood supply, better oxygenation. This is what we've done to patients with Alzheimer's, head trauma, stroke, cancer, all kinds of things. And Kellogg describes this in his book, Rational Hydrotherapy. Very good, helping the brain to have better blood supply and function better. Use it or lose it. What do we mean by that? Well, you want to have good mental activity. People who have low mental activity, don't challenge their brains, have a high risk of dementia. Those who are always challenging their brains have a low risk of dementia. And so what can we do to challenge our brains? Let's read. Let's discuss things. Let's study stuff. Let's do word games. How about trivia games? I mean, anything to keep your brain active. Learn new things. What happens when you learn something new is the brain develops pathways around dead spots in the brain. The brain develops new neuronal connections that bypass areas that have been damaged, perhaps by oxidants or Alzheimer's plaque. And one of the best things you can do for learning is Bible study. It builds the brain. Comparing here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept, that's the best thing. The association cortex of your brain. And so memory exercises definitely pay off. How do they pay off? Well, anything you do to help learn and remember is worthwhile. Well, even if it's external things, tying a string around your finger, whatever. Object lessons, blackboards, maps, figures, symbols, mnemonics. What's mnemonics? Mnemonics is memory pegs. And using little tricks to remember things. Songs and pictures. We're told that singing songs is a good way to memorize scripture songs. So when I was putting this talk together, I was thinking, oh, I should have some good stories to tell of people who actually benefited. And I was thinking, well, I did counsel a gentleman on Alzheimer's along with his family a couple years ago. And so I looked through my records, found his records, gave him a call and said, hey, how's this gentleman doing? How's he, you talked to me 2 years ago. I gave you a plan. How did it work? And he said, oh, he's doing great. I says, how's his Alzheimer's? It says, as long as he stays on your program and doesn't go off the diet, his memory is just fine. But he starts eating at a fast food joint, things start to deteriorate. It's very interesting. And so he had reversed his Alzheimer's with good lifestyle habits. And we had told him about Bible study and diet and things like that, learning new things. And so he was benefiting. Now, stress definitely predicts the progression to dementia. People with more stress. What happens is the cortisol goes up. When the cortisol goes up, it washes out neurons out of your memory. Your memory is your hippocampus. Stress is about emotions. It's your reaction to stimuli. So it's really about emotional health. And so you need to have good emotions, good emotional health, or you'll have stress. How can I have good emotional health? Well, maybe you can practice these virtues. The fruit of the Spirit is love. That's a good emotion. Joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are all good things to focus on for developing good emotional health. Happiness improves your memory. People who enjoy life have a better ability to recall things. A merry heart is good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. You don't want dry bones. Yeah. So now, friends, look at this graph. Notice the red line has many friends, and that line's going up a little bit. Look at the blue line. It's going down. It says few friends. That's cognitive decline. People who have less friends are 250% more likely to have cognitive decline. This is dangerous. So let your friends help you keep your brain, right? Improve your social health. That's what friends is all about, right? Practice the one another text. Love one another. Accept one another. Pray for one another. Honor one another. Encourage one another. Carry one another's burdens. Serve one another. This is the one. I mean, there's a lot more of those one another texts, but these are a few that can just help you with your social health and benefit. Another way to preserve your brain, as to preserve all your health, is to volunteer. Help volunteers experience 1/4 intellectual decline over a 1-year period compared to non-volunteers. Isn't that amazing? I thought that was amazing. Preserve your intellectual capacity. So go volunteer. Notice here, intellectual decline, volunteering, non-volunteers, high intellectual decline. Volunteers, low, 1/4. So there you go. So just like Our Lady from Michigan who went to Florida and got on a bad diet and lost her brain, you can come home and you can start having a better diet and lifestyle and bring your brain back. And, well, if your brain hasn't gone away, keep it good by not violating good laws of health. In summary, healthy eating nurtures a healthy brain. Exercise, physical or mental, promotes a vigorous brain. Psychological and social health improves and supports an active brain. So, recommendations: eat fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, but don't overeat. Limit or avoid animal products, fatty foods, fermented foods, processed foods, chemicalized foods. Eat only at scheduled meal times and eat very little, if any, in the evening. Take time daily for vigorous exercise outdoors in the fresh air, sunshine, and in as natural an environment as possible. Do useful, purposeful labor. That's the very best. Drink plenty of pure water. Avoid heavy metals, chemicals, pesticides, MSG, herbicides. Keep your mind active and challenged every day. Make friends and build social networks. Take steps to manage stress effectively. Take advantage of the help God can give you in living to the fullest, free from stress and worry. There you go. Keeping your mind sharp. If you go to my website, moonlightshealtheducation.com, and you go to the left-hand column there, you'll see down part way, you'll see this thing called Presentation Handouts. You click on that, and you'll be able to download Keeping Your Mind Sharp lecture handout and review. So this has been Blueprint for Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation, Keeping Your Mind Sharp, Alzheimer's, Memory Loss, Cognitive Decline, and Dementia. All right, I'll shut off the screen share. I'll turn off the PowerPoint and come back to Zoom for questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. I know there was a rocky start, but we definitely benefited a lot from what you have presented. And we will, I'm certain there are others like myself, we'll have to go through this presentation 2, 3 times. Maybe something is not too right with the brain, but definitely we'll have to go through because there was a lot of information that you did present, and it's a lot to take in and to consider. So, but for those who are joining us live stream, we will end this presentation, and we will, those of you who are in Zoom, you will remain for the Q&A. All right.